Hey everybody, Jeannie here. I've been creating these little miniature paintings for beginners mostly, and then I'll be getting back to some of my more elaborate paintings like what you see here. I've got a video on some tips on how I did the little sparkles of light on a fish's back in one of my other videos, so go back and check it out. But go on to my website and you will see some of my other artwork, and most of my art right now is down at my show that I'm doing right now, which I do periodically. So if you want to know where and what I'm doing and what's new and get some new gifts and ideas and special deals I've got going on, go on my website and sign up for my newsletter. And before we get to this one, let me take you down to the river. This is the Rogue River in Oregon, and I want to take you on a real quick, just a couple minutes, show you some amazing power in the river and what it's doing right now from all the rain. So, see you in a minute. Let's go. Check it out. This river has flooded my whole trail. Amazing. All the rain. Wow. This is nuts. And there's the river way out there. It's where I usually walk. But it'll go down. It's incredibly wild. Wow. So here we are starting our acrylic orange wash. And I'm just using a little 1/2 inch angle here to draw in my whole layout. Basically, this is what I like to do, and it gives you some values to work with. And the more water you use into the brush on the acrylic application here is a lot better. That way you can create your values and make some of the color fade out, and then you add more pigment to the brush as you layer in, like detail in the rocks. You're basically drawing out your plan with acrylic paint rather than a pencil. It's the same kind of feel you would do with a pencil. You know, you lighten up on your touch as you want to create some highlights on your drawing, and then you deepen your touch as you want the shadows to pop out more. But basically, I'm adding more pigment as I want those darker colors to show through on this acrylic paint. I just love this technique because it really shows the whole layout of the painting first, so you kind of know where you're going with it more this way. And then the acrylic paint dries really fast. You don't ever want to put acrylic on top of oil. Only underneath the oil is fine as long as you let it dry. It takes just a couple of minutes for it to dry too. So we're just continuing in. I'm kind of sort of scrubbing in where I want my darker shades of highlights on the sky, and just dipping my brush in the water as I go. Sometimes I can spritz with the little spray bottle. If you've seen some of my other videos where I spray the little glass plate where I've got my paint set on. Here I'm ready to start with the oils. I've got some titanium white, ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and yellow light, cadmium yellow light here. And pretty much just brushing in all that nice light color first, all the white. Barely a little bit of yellow. You don't want to use that too strong. So I just keep pushing that in there. A little bit of crimson as I come up into the top part of the canvas, and it creates kind of a peachy color. You have to be really careful with those two colors, the crimson and the yellow, because they're really strong colors. And you don't want to wipe out your light coming from behind the mountains. keeping that sky lighter at the base of the mountain. Now we're going to bring in that ultramarine blue into the top of the sky, pushing that around that pretty peachy crimson color to create kind of a foggish, is that a word? Foggy kind of a feel. And I just bring in a little bit more crimson at a time right around that border just to push it down around. Now I'm going to grab some more white and all those same colors, just scrubbing it in, pulling that brush through my paper towel to keep it nice and dry. You don't want that to be full of paint because you'll end up with too much paint on your sky, and that's a real soft sky. So now we've got yellow and ultramarine blue together will make kind of a green color. We're going to create those far away distant trees in the background. So I'm just kind of bringing the tip of that brush right up into that sky while it's wet. It will create a nice soft tree line there. Just kind of push it up and down, make little trees far, far away in the distance, adding more pigment and color as you come forward. And we're going to start bringing in some rock. So I'm really getting that nice and dark to create that rock, and that really brings that foreground in towards us now. Keeping that soft color at the base of the rock structure as we come down into that misty water line, because that mountain's going to be a little bit further away. Now this one up in front is going to be a little closer. Kind of bring in that brush and chisel it around, just forming your rock structures. Now we're going to bring that same soft color back in the background behind those rocks to create some faraway distant trees again. Just keep bringing it in as much as you want it. Just have fun with just creating those rocks. A little more crimson and ultramarine blue is going to make a nice dark color. And notice I add a little orange. I've got some cat orange down there. That'll bring in some more of those browner colors. But keeping a lot of that light, pulling that brush through the paper towel often to keep your brush from loading up too much. I'm going to keep that color soft down there next to the water to create kind of a foggy feel. Now I'm just going to keep adding that orange now to create that rock color, giving that basic block-in feel to the rocks. And you could come in and detail that as much as you want, especially towards the top of the rocks. You don't want it too detailed at the bottom because I'm creating kind of a fog down there. You notice how the soft fog at the entrance of the canyon there coming down over the river. Keep on pinching that brush off in the paper towel. Now I'm going to just keep adding some highlights here. Just keep putting in those highlights. Use that brush to chisel around and make rocks. You're making cracks, rock cracks. And now I'm going to keep those colors a little bit darker as I come towards us now in this foreground rock canyon. Just experiment, play around. You follow your pattern of the acrylic underneath as much as you want, or change it a little bit if you want. Notice I keep bouncing back and forth. I like to get a lot of that block in all around in the painting before I start really working on bringing in some detail, and just play with it, play with those rocks. Just look at the photograph that I provided at the beginning of the video. Sometimes it helps just to watch the painting process through before you start trying it, depending on your level of experience. Oils are awesome because they are so creamy and they really apply to the canvas really nicely. This is just a little gessoed board. You can use whatever size canvas you want on any of these studies that I'm providing here for you. And if you like these videos, let me know in the comments below. And let me know what you'd like to learn to paint. And let me see if I can put something together for you. Now I'm creating that reflection, that water. I'm getting the water good and wet now. as I pull that reflection down from the rock, it's going to blend into that nice wet paint, just like it did with the sky. It's going to allow you to really pull those colors into that wet paint, and just keep smoothing it out. Keep pinching off your brush as you pull those colors into that center light. You don't want to drag those colors into the center too much, because you want that light to come around the corner and reflect into the water just like it is in the sky, because the sky is going to reflect into the water and the rocks are going to reflect in the water. And we're just going to keep building the rock, building the rocks. Now I'm using a little mop, a little miniature mop, to soften all that color. And I'm bringing in that softness in the center where the light is first, before I pull it out away into the reflections of the rocks. I've switched brushes again. I'm going back to that angle brush and bringing in some of those foreground rocks now. Helps to keep looking back and forth at your photo. Look at the finished painting as I walk you through this. Create your own rocks. I'm kind of using the rocks to point you in towards the entrance of the canyon, which is a really nice effect in any painting, to create that visual, to bring the viewer into the painting. Now I'm bringing the rock into the water. Same thing as the big rock cliffs. It just sort of drift in that soft tones into the water while it's wet. It works so much better while you do this wet. Okay, now you can let this painting dry after that stage that we just finished, or you can continue on while it's wet. Either way, I've let this dry because I didn't have time to finish it all at one setting, but I had my block in, so I didn't have to worry about finishing it up in one setting. So either way, it works. Now we're going to start creating some trees, some brush along the shoreline with some, I've got some phthalo green, some burnt umber, some orange oxide, some Naples yellow, yellow light, white, titanium white, and some cad orange. And I'm using a tiny little rake comb. I call a little rake comb. I'll list all this on the screen as we go so that you can write those things down, so that you can know what colors and brushes I'm using. So I'm just going to keep really tediously, I like to be tedious. So I tediously bring in all those little branches and things. Sometimes I'll switch back and forth with my brushes. Excuse me. I had a frog in my throat. Lots of talking. So now I'm going to bring in some branches. You want to start creating those shadows coming down to the base of the rock. Pushing those shadows down around. Just create some bushes. Back and forth. Now I'm going to bring in some oranges because I wanted to have some little orange bushes in there. Pinching off the brush again, so I don't get that brush too loaded up with paint. Get too much paint on the brush, it just won't work for you. It just doesn't. Now we're going to highlight. I'm using that yellow light. That's an amazing color. Really brightens up things and brings in that nice bright light that I love to add. I'm touching in with that Naples yellow a little bit too, right underneath the yellow light. Just kind of working those colors like a rainbow of light. You've got your white, your cad light, your Naples yellow, and then your oranges. They all kind of go simultaneously. Now I'm just kind of highlighting those rocks, bringing in a little bit of highlight, reflecting it into the water as I go, pushing the shadow down under the rocks as I go. Just keep tediously creating these little rocks. Now I'm going to bring in the highlights of or the reflections of the trees into the water now. Just pushing that back and forth in a horizontal direction because your water is laying flat and it's creating that flat shimmer of color that's reflecting into the water. Starts to feel like water as you do this. Just keep on pulling that down, sort of measure. Don't bring your trees down into the water too much because you don't want that reflection overpowering. You want to lead the viewer's eye into the canyon. And just keep going back and forth with the different colors and the white to create a little bit of highlight, shimmers that come across the water. Keep shimmering that light. Now I'll pull. If you notice water as it moves, the shimmers of color just kind of drift around and catch the light of the sky. So you want to keep bringing in that light, those little glimmers of light with the white. That's what I'm doing here. And I'm just playing around with it. I like to take my time and enjoy the whole process. I'm just bringing in a little bit more shadow into those rocks underneath because the top of the rocks are going to catch the light. And bring in that dark shadow right along the bank side where maybe there's some grasses growing. I get a little bit of white with the ultramarine blue to bring in the sky now shimmering across the water. And you notice my little teeny tiny pile. I'm trying to get that clean white away from the green as I bring it over to the little spot on the palette and add their ultramarine blue to it so that it's like a light blue color. And it really dresses up the rocks, gives them some life. And now I've got some yellow again. I'm playing around with the grasses here. This is the tedious, fun stuff that I like to do. And just kind of creating some trees over here. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. I was just playing around. You might not like it. You may or may not like to do this, but you can go with or without the little trees. If you look back on the last video with the trees in the mist that I did a lot of study on how to create those trees into the mist. So you might want to go back and look at that one. That's a really great study. It's a wet on wet study of how to pull trees down into the mist, like a fog effect. Really pretty, I think. It's a really great study, and it's not too long. Now I'm just kind of creating some trunks as I go into those trees. A little bit of oranges, maybe some autumn colors starting to happen. This was the end of summer. I took this photo that I showed at the beginning of the video. And I just create some more little trees and bushes and things. Whatever I feel like I want to put in there. Just make it interesting. Just keep on playing with it. Now I'm going to just reflect those same things that I paint up onto the rocks down into the water. And I'll come over this again and again to make sure that I've got those reflections correct and create enough shimmers and glimmers into the water. I like to sparkle things, make them full of life. This is a really good study for flat, soft, calm water. Nothing like the river at the beginning of the video. Man, was that amazing. And this photo, of course, was taken during late summer, and then the rain has been raining so much right now that it's just flooded the river. And we're in January now. Happy New Year. It's 2025 now. Wow. Can you believe it? This is the first. So Happy New Year, everybody. Okay, now I'm going to just keep on bringing those shimmers of light onto the rocks the same way. Just keep creating that nice soft flow and reflecting those same things into the water that you put in onto the rocks that are above the water. And then we just keep on tinkering away with this, making little details, grabbing that shadow, a little bit of orange, a little bit of crimson. Give some color to those rocks in the foreground. A little bit of highlight as I go. Keep on putting that highlight in there. And we're almost to the end. And I'm going to start glazing in a little bit more shadow into the water. And then keep on adding the glimmers of light with the ultramarine blue and white into the water as I go until I'm completely satisfied. You'll watch me do this. But I want to thank you so much for watching, and I hope this really has helped you. It's just a little teeny tiny 6x8 study, And these are good to do to keep practicing these smaller ones when you're learning oils, so that you'll be more prepared to do the bigger ones. But I just love oils. They're so realistic. So now I'm just, as I was telling you before, I'm just going to start glazing in a little bit more deeper colors with that ultramarine blue and crimson to pull in a little bit more shadow from glimmering that reflection of the rocks into the water, to pull them towards you a little bit more, just to touch it up a little bit. And I'll keep doing this until I'm happy with it. Just shimmering it back and forth, grabbing the light white and ultramarine blue to just soften those edges. You'll notice the edges of your color will start to get too stiff, so I use the ultramarine blue and white to soften that up. You'll see me keep on putting that in there just to soften the edge of that reflection. This was a lot of fun doing that. I love water. I just love painting water, above water and underwater. My fish paintings that I do underwater, I love doing splashes of water, and I'll do some more of that kind of thing, and ocean scenes, and the ocean's one of my favorites too. So just stick around, stick with me, and you'll get to see a lot more. I'll do some more detailed paintings, like with my animals that I love to do, horses and game animals and bears and moose, and I love just painting it all, especially if something's near the water. I want to start a cabin painting too. So now notice how I bring that gold, that brown and gold into the water from the reflection of the rocks that are above, like in the foreground there, that are in front of that dark one. So you want to, everything that you see, it needs to reflect into the water. So just keep tinkering with that. Now I'll come into the foreground too as I work forward. I'll do that same thing around those foreground rocks, bringing that light ultramarine blue and white mixture down around, and I keep tinkering that in there until I get just enough shimmers that I'm happy with. We're almost to the end. We're almost there, and I really hope this has helped you. Please let me know in the comments if you have stuck around till the end. Congratulations, and I hope you give this one a try. It's kind of tedious, but it's fun. It's fun to create all the details. That's how I feel about it anyway. So thanks so much for coming along with me. And notice now I just keep pulling that color down in there. Keep on bringing those details of the colors reflecting from the rocks down into the water. It starts to get more and more realistic as you do that. I'm going to slow you down a little bit so you can see the very end of what I'm doing here a little bit tighter. I've slowed down the time lapse to give you a little more time to really observe what I'm doing here. Pulling in that rock color into the water is basically what I'm doing. Back and forth from darks to light. And always bringing in that ultramarine blue and white mixture in onto the edge of those dark shadows. Very important, because you want that to be really good and smoothed out. And then you pinch off your brush and wipe it off and get the little glimmers of light with the white. Maybe a little ultramarine blue in there as well. So I'm just kind of picking and choosing where I want to just push that color in. I'm using very little paint, keeping it soft, really soft. Now I'm going to go back to my ultramarine blue and white mixture, and I'm going to touch up those last little shimmers and glimmers all the way up into the foreground. I'm just having fun at this point. I love those last details. So thank you again so much for watching, following along with me. Now see how the water moves? I'm just kind of squiggling and jiggling it like little snakes going through the water. Little light shimmers where the water is just moving. So much fun. I'm going to pinch off my brush, so I will see you in the next video. I'm going to, like I say, I'm going to keep bringing that light color down in there to shimmer that water in. Thanks again so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.